everybody, and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we've got a little Star Wars news, but before I start, I want to give a huge shout out to my Patreon, Mike Jackson, who I unfortunately left off the roll yesterday, so special shout out to you, Mike Jackson. You've now been added to the end credits, so thank you so much for your patronage, and thank you for reaching out. Again, I make mistakes sometimes, and so if I ever make mistakes like that, please feel free to reach out to me via email. If you're over on Patreon, subscribe, start direct messages over there as well. But anyway, let's get to the Star Wars news. And the first bit of news is something that really isn't a surprise to anyone that actually watched the movies and paid attention to it. But Rian Johnson apparently doesn't care about canon, doesn't care about history, because we all know this by now. He made a Star Wars movie for himself. And because of that selfishness, he threw Star Wars into one of the worst places that it's been in its entire history. And that includes even all of the terrible dialogue that we got from the prequels. Because at least the prequels were coherent stories. The dialogue may have been terrible, but you know what? At least the story had an overarching, sensible arc to follow. Unlike Rise of Skywalker and Last Jedi and Force Awakens. So it says it right here, from Bounding into Comics, Star Wars Last Jedi director Rian Johnson admits he didn't care about Star Wars canon and history. Oh my goodness, this really isn't a big surprise, but again, it's nice to see that he's actually confirming it now. Johnson, when asked by The Hollywood Reporter's Natalie Hetzel, whenever you are writing, let's say you are creating your own universe, you said you don't think about actors, you're starting something from scratch. How is that approach versus something where you have pre-existing universe? Johnson will respond, no, not at all, because I don't really think in terms of universes or in terms of creating worlds or whatever. That's not interesting to me. He continued, the only thing that is interesting to me is story. Really? Well, where was the story in The Last Jedi, bud? And the story specific to, like, whether you're writing a Star Wars film, that's part of a 3-movie trilogy, or a quote, unquote, original thing like Knives Out. You are still telling a story that is new to the thing that you are doing, that it has to work within the context of that movie. Johnson also added, so to me, the notion of what's the entire galaxy or world that you are creating or something, I can't imagine getting excited about creating that. To me, what I'm excited about is creating a 2-hour-long experience for an audience to have in the theater. And that means how they engage moment to moment with the story and the characters that are on screen, and that doesn't change in either one of those. Oh boy. Oh boy. This answer is really not shocking given the product we saw in The Last Jedi. The movie threw away and completely ignored characterizations and story moments from The Force Awakens. The opening scene of the film is probably the biggest example. General Hux, played by Donald Gleason, is turned into a complete and utter buffoon as he gets prank called by Poe Dameron. This is a stark contrast to not only the opening crawl of The Last Jedi that reads, the First Order reigns, having decimated the peaceful Republic, Supreme Leader Snoke now deploys his merciless legions to seize military control of the galaxy. It continues, but the resistance has been exposed as the First Order speeds towards the rebel base. The brave heroes mount a desperate escape. It literally describes Hux and the Force Order as merciless legions, but what we get is a bumbling buffoon who falls for a prank phone call and delays killing Poe Dameron. That's pretty much the opposite of merciless. If Hux were indeed merciless, he would have blasted Poe Dameron out of the sky without even communicating with him. It also notes that the First Order decimated the Republic. Who gave that order? General Hux in The Force Awakens. Here's a refresher. This is the guy Rian Johnson had on the receiving end of prank phone call from Poe Dameron Last Jedi. These 3 key moments prove that Johnson believes that he's preaching, and apparently, prove that Johnson believes what he's preaching, and apparently so did Kathleen Kennedy and the head honchos at Lucasfilm. It's why the script, the prank phone call scene, and The Last Jedi were all approved. And again, this really isn't all that surprising. And so some might argue saying, well, shouldn't a director have full creative control, and shouldn't it be his vision or her vision for the movie that they have in front of them? And I would say yes. But if you're making the middle film of a blatant trilogy, you can't just make yourself, oh, I'm the center of my own universe, and so therefore I don't care about what came beforehand. I don't care about the canon or the history that came before, and I'm just going to make my own thing. I'm just going to care about entertaining audiences for those 2 hours. Well, you didn't entertain a lot of people. I mean, again, just go back to the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, which again, I know is not a good source anymore and never was really a good source or a good metric, but look to the Star Wars fandom and how you split the Star Wars fandom in two and led to one of the most disappointing final ends to any franchise ever in The Rise of Skywalker, which was the end of the Skywalker saga, making just over a little over $1 billion, not even beating out Joker as of today. Still behind Joker, which only cost $55 million, was rated R and didn't get a China release. That's thanks to you, Rian Johnson. Obviously, we can throw shade at Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams. Of course we can. There's a lot to blame to throw around. But let's be honest, who is at the center? Who is at the apex of all of this? It's Rian Johnson. And it's because of this ego that he has, the same ego that led him to make that film called Knives Out. There's been a lot of people that have said, oh, it was such a great film, and oh, you know what, he should keep making films like this. And I agree. Stay away from Star Wars, please, because obviously, seeing that you don't care about canon, seeing that you don't care about history, seeing that you don't care about Star Wars, even though you've also gone on record saying, oh, I love Star Wars, oh, I love this universe. If you truly loved it, you wouldn't have crapped all over it. If you truly loved it, you wouldn't have just said, oh, I can just do whatever I want, and it doesn't matter what happens, because all that matters is the 2 hours that I have to deal with this movie, and all only matters is the 2 hours of story that I'm telling. While in the process, pretty much destroying the Star Wars IP and leaving them now in a position where they are trying to pick up the pieces slowly by changing the story, changing the canon with the freaking novelizations, among so many other things. Picking up the pieces that you left behind, Rian Johnson, and I cannot wait for the day for them to officially announce that your trilogy has been canceled and is not going to happen. And of course, the day where Kathleen Kennedy finally is either repositioned, retires, or flat out gets fired. Either way, I'd be happy, because you know what? We don't need people like you, Rian, in the Star Wars universe if you're not even going to care for even a microsecond about the things that happened beforehand. If you can't even make the middle film of a trilogy, why would we think that you can make your own trilogy at all? If every single film, your mindset is, I'm just going to worry about these 2 hours and I'm not going to care about anything else that came before it or comes after it, then how can your own trilogy even work? Probably want to ask that question. Anyway, what are your thoughts about this? Obviously, this is really not a big surprise from Rian Johnson, but also, funny story, because I know some people might want me to talk about it. That Reylo kiss in The Rise of Skywalker was totally platonic, actually. So this is according to people from Lucasfilm, some from authors of the books and things like that, are coming out saying that this was actually a platonic kiss. This actually was not romantic, which has now got all the Reylos going crazy online everywhere, which again, I don't really care one way or the other, because it was a stupid scene that made very little sense in the grand scheme of things. And also it just purports and perpetuates a very abusive relationship. Let's just not forget the stuff that happened between these two characters prior to their relationship actually, flowering in this film. But yeah, that's where we are now. This is our Star Wars now. This is where we are. And thank you, Rian Johnson. Anyway, let me know your thoughts about this and all the things talked about in the comment section below. If you like this video, smash that like button. Give me a subscribe. It helps me out a lot. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless. And now to give a special shout out to my March Patreon and Subscribe Star members: animation commentator Brian P., Dion, David Brobrizik, Divex, Elizabeth M., Enrique Evangelista, Father Christopher Miller, Hail Father, Frank the Tank and the Shawhan Wiener Dog Clan, Harold Francis, the Honker Chonker Funky Monkey, Inflamed Wood, Trap Productions, Jason Clark, Jeffrey Toon, JJ Jonathan Jerembeck, Kenneth Camiel, Lady T, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mr. Peabody and his evil twin with the beautiful hair, Orange Hat Reviews, Outpost Dyer, Perpetual Punster, Riff Magos, Riff Racer Request, Rosetta Allen, Sir Lancelato, Steve Glasker, Teresa Martin, Theodore Bendon, The DJD Show, and Tina B for Patreon, and my Subscribe Star peeps: Robert Revo, Larry, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, G2 Cool 99, Dark Star 57, Alex McCarthy, US 888209 Fast, Dean Heiss, Harold Francis, J-Rod the Beer Guru, Nebadan G. Adams, and ZK Man, and Mike Jackson. Thank you all so much for being my Patreon and Subscribe Star members for the month of March. You are all amazing people. Thank you so much for the support, and I hope that you are enjoying your perks. If you do not know the perks that you get, make sure you read again through all the perks that are listed, and also check your messages if you're over on Patreon, because if you are a $5 and up backer on Patreon, you get special access to giveaways over on the Discord. I send out messages with a link to join the Discord server. I will then hook you up over there, and you'll have access to some really cool giveaways. I give away 4Ks, Blu-rays, digital codes, try and give away at least a couple of big movies, 4K Blu-ray titles a month, and try to do at least 2 to 3 giveaways for when it comes to digital download codes. And I might try and do a little bit more this month as well, because I'm always trying to add extra stuff to it. And also, if you are a $10 or up backer, then you have access to a special podcast that I'm starting to do with John the Flick Pick. That's right, John Flickinger of the Flick Pick channel. We're having a lot of fun with the podcast, and so expect that every couple weeks. And of course, also any extra behind the scenes, extra footage, extra interviews, extra solo podcasts as well, you will also have access to. And my special $25 and up backers on Patreon Subscribestar, you have access to all of those things that I've listed. You also get a t-shirt. That's right, I will send you a t-shirt for your first month. And of course, you can also be featured on the Chosen to Valhalla live stream once a month. You get to be featured on the Odin's movie blog channel. It's always usually on a Sunday around 12 p.m. Eastern time. You get to join some lovely peeps and have some really great discussion with all of the Chosen of Valhalla and me with the live audience. Anyway, you guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless.